Life in Christian community. When I lived in Gahanna, Ohio, my brother Todd lived just a few doors down from us, and we would go over to his house from time to time. He usually would have a fire or something like that, and we'd sit outside. Well, one night, Kidron and I were over at my older brother's house, and we were grilling hot dogs over a charcoal fire. Kidron was about 5 or 6 at the time, and was at that stage where he was fascinated by fire. Now, this is a typical developmental stage for boys. Starts when they're about 5, 6 years old and kind of goes on for like 70 or 80 years. Right, guys? Come on now. Telling him how the fire can only keep burning when those little charcoal briquettes are kind of stay together. Otherwise, it goes out. Unfortunately, Kidron thought that meant that a briquette that was sitting off to the side of the fire was not hot anymore, and he reached in and picked one up. Yeah, ouch. Blister City. Not a good choice, but one that we all seem to do at some point, especially if you're a male. So how many of you out there would consider yourself to be a grill master? Put your hands up loud and proud. Grill masters out there? No? Guys, girls, it doesn't matter. If you're a grill master, then you know that in order to get maximum heat from your charcoal briquettes, they all need to be what? Red, and they also need to be touching, right? If the briquettes are all spread out, not touching each other, they lose heat, and eventually they go out. It's not good if you're trying to cook something. That's how it is when you live in community with each other. If you isolate yourself from other Christians, you tend to lose your heat. You tend to lose your fire. You tend to lose your passion for Jesus, and it's in danger of dying down or even going out. But if you remain connected, keep in touch with a community of believers, the heat and the fire of others' faith, it kind of stokes your fire. And the collective fire of the church, it begins to burn higher and higher and higher. Everybody wants to belong, right? We all want to belong, especially in the crazy and fun moments of life, spraying each other at car washes, laughing and kind of sitting around a table, eating donuts and drinking coffee. Who doesn't like to eat donuts and drink coffee? Just kind of doing life together. Everybody loves community. My experience here at MP-NAS shows me at least that most everyone here treasures the idea of great friendships and experiences together. I think everybody here kind of aches to be a part of a band of brothers and sisters, a family. I don't think what we really need is another sermon on the value of community. I think we get that. I think what we wonder is, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Why can't I just call up the church and order up like 4 or 5 permanent, intimate, life-giving, growth-producing best friends? Like some sort of an app, right? Wouldn't that be great if we could just do that? Just call up and order that? Well, over the next few moments, I want to talk about what I see as the great barrier to community. Then we're actually going to close this service by having a couple moments of a small step, very small step into community. Because we don't want to just talk about it, we want to actually be about it, okay? So we're going to actually do this. Years ago, writer and psychiatrist Dr. Scott Peck converted to Christianity, and he had been fascinated with relationships his whole life. It's why he studied what he did. But now that he was a follower of Jesus, he began to look at God's plan for human community and what it is that prevents it. Dr. Peck said that what we long for, this is what he said, what we long for, what we ache for is what might be called true and authentic community. And when this takes place, everyone knows it. People get real. They get authentic. The masks, they start to come off. People show up. They speak truth. They know and are known by each other. And that's how lives get changed and disciples get formed. It's a true community, and it's a living, breathing thing. There's the right balance of encouragement and challenge, and we absolutely ache for it, whether we realize it or not. But what we often experience instead, what gets in the way, is what might be called, what Dr. Peck calls pseudo-community or imitation community. It's kind of community, but it's kind of a fake version of the real thing. What happens in pseudo-community is we might hang out with each other. We might be polite and pleasant when we talk to each other. But the primary indicator of pseudo-community is conflict avoidance. I mean, everyone's very nice. They're very pleasant. But what we prefer is kind of a superficial shallowness. instead of authentic, deep community. It's kind of a don't rock the boat mentality, right? The problem is this type of community doesn't transform anybody, and it goes on all the time. Things start to get a little stagnant, they start getting a little boring, and we just start going through the motions, right? Whether it's in our life or our marriage, it doesn't matter. Small group, job, church, pseudo-community, fake community. So the real question becomes, actually move from here over to there, from pseudo to real. Because authentic community is what we all want, but we end up over there in pseudo community. How do we get from fake community to the real stuff? Well, it's not easy, and it's definitely kind of scary to step out into the unknown. Dr. Peck says that what we have to do is enter into what he calls the tunnel of chaos. Doesn't that sound awesome? You want to jump right into that, don't you? Somebody has to take a step out of the fake version of community into what appears to be chaos, appears to be the unknown. Somebody's got to take a risk. Somebody has to show up. Somebody has to have courage. Somebody has to trust God enough to speak a hard truth to start the conversation. And you know and I know that that is always a risk. Going into a tunnel is always risky because when you're in a tunnel, guess what? You can't see the other side. You can't see where the exit is located, and nobody wants to jump in when you don't know where the exit's going to be. The question is somebody willing to do this, or are we all just going to sit here? And this happens in churches all the time. In a church, sometimes people show up and they go to church week after week, month after month, year after year, sit in the same place, smile and nod at the same faces, and nobody ever really knows them. We don't want that. Jesus doesn't want that. So in what's left in this message, I want to mention a few of the ways Jesus was always modeling going into the tunnel of chaos. And then just asking for you and for me, is God calling me, is God calling us into authentic community? The first way involves the step of initiating community, of initiating and actually being in authentic relationships. This happens at the very beginning for Jesus, Matthew chapter 4. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come follow me, Jesus said, and I will make you fish for people. I'll give you community and a purpose. So Peter and Andrew, they start to follow Jesus, and immediately it happens again. Going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Now, whenever you see two stories back to back like this, someone's trying to make a point. You see, repetition in ancient literature, including the Bible, is a way of underlining things, emphasizing something. It's a way of saying, pay attention, this is really important. Jesus is starting to build a unique little community here. You see, Jesus is the only rabbi that we know of who recruited his disciples. It's true, all rabbis had disciples, but every other rabbi we know of actually waited for disciples to approach them and to apply. Why? Because it was considered beneath the dignity of a rabbi to go out there and troll for students. Because when you're the one who initiates, when you're the one asking, you could get turned down. Jesus was risking being rejected, but he did it anyway, and that is always, always difficult. It's also part of the reason why we often try very hard to get into community, because there's a risk you could get rejected. We try to avoid that at all costs. For example, asking someone out on a date. All right, so has anybody here ever asked somebody out on a date and gotten rejected? Okay, two of you? Really? And really, that's it? Okay, how many of you, male or female, have ever asked someone on a date and been rejected? Oh, 3 or 4 now. I still don't believe you. All right. Let's try this from a different angle. How many of you have ever rejected somebody for a date? Yeah, that's what I thought. Here we go. There's truth for you, right? But the reality is, when people who are involved in community, whether it's small group ministry, serving together, when they're asked how they got involved, the number one answer is, somebody asked me, right? But on the flip side, when people who are not involved are asked how come they're not involved, anybody want to guess what that number one answer is? Nobody asked. Nobody asked. So ask. Step number one, pretty easy. Ask. God may be calling you to be intentional about getting into authentic community. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine asked me to get together, and I said, absolutely, let's do that. So we got together at a local coffee shop. And this is what he says to me. He says, I think God's calling me to get deeper in my faith. I love to hear stuff like that. And I think it's going to involve an accountability type deal. Then he started talking about what the temptations and struggles were that kept him from walking with God the way that he wanted to. I got to tell you, it was incredibly humbling, just the openness of what he was asking, because it was a huge risk he was taking. Then he said he felt like he needed maybe a few people to walk alongside him in his life in order to keep him accountable for living this deeper walk with God. Then he asked me if I'd be willing to pray to consider going on this new adventure with him. I was so honored by that. If anybody ever asks you to do that, I hope you say, absolutely. I will absolutely do that. And I hope you would consider doing something like that with somebody. Accountability. You know, I remember several years ago, New Family at Shepherd Nazarene was telling a group of people at lunch that we did for new families that were in the church. And they came to lunch and they were kind of talking and letting people know who they were. And this is what they said, something along this line. You know, my husband and I don't want to just attend this church. We don't want to just do the go-to-church thing. We want to form friendships here. We want to find people we can serve with and grow with, and that will speak into our lives and we can speak into theirs. Would you pray for us as we try to find that here? We've never done something like that in searching for a church. What a fantastic prayer. What a fantastic thing to ask for. I have to tell you that in the short time I've been here as your pastor, I've realized that there are so many great people that I can learn from at this church. Absolutely. If you find that you've been doing the going to church thing, but you're not in true community and you want that for you and your family, ask. Please ask. Come and talk to me if nobody else. Come and ask. Begin by asking, God, would you guide me? Who are some people that I can take that next step with? That means you're going to have to be vulnerable. And that's hard for us, isn't it? Would you be willing to make a commitment today, this morning, that you're going to get out of the permanent visitor category, that you're going to take a little risk and start asking to be in relationship? I'll say this too. Some of you have been following Jesus for a very long time, and you have so much to offer those around you, but it may have been years since you've tried to come alongside somebody who you maybe see as kind of disconnected and then invite them into a relationship. Look for that person. That means you got to pick your head up. You got to look around. I learned a long time ago, people are not mostly looking for friendly people when they come to church. Folks, people are looking for a friend. It's important. The second step into the tunnel of chaos is the risk of challenging each other. See, spiritual growth is not a neutral process. It's a battle against sin. And Jesus is always doing this. He's always challenging people to things like deeper devotion to God and genuine transformation of your character. Jesus is always on the lookout for spiritual decay or spiritual breakdown, and he's always exposing it. He always calls it out when he sees it in people. He's always addressing it with courage. That's hard for us. In pseudo community, when unpleasant topics come up, what do we do often? We smooth it over, right? We change the subject because it makes us uncomfortable. It makes us nervous. You see, Jesus never appeared to get nervous. He just kind of plowed right through, didn't he? He kind of tackled it head on. Instead of avoiding resistance, tension, or difficulty, he was exposing it, even if it was scary. Do you know why? Because that's where the growth is. That's where the growth is. One time when the disciples are having problems with each other, we're told Jesus asked the disciples, see if you remember this, what were you arguing about along the way? But they kept quiet because they had argued about who was the greatest. Don't you love that argument? With Jesus being literally right there. Notice that little phrase, but they kept quiet. That right there, that's fake community. There's this difficulty, there's this tension, but we won't name it, we won't talk about it, not with Jesus, because it'd be too embarrassing, it'd be scary, we won't do it. Folks, that is pseudo-community. See, Jesus never let little communities remain pseudo-communities. He's always pulling people towards true, authentic, biblical community, and he does that right here. Hey guys, what are you talking about? He exposes it. Then they have to talk about it, and then it becomes a teachable moment. It becomes an opportunity to be challenged to a life of humble servanthood. I'm telling you, I've learned so much over the last couple of years, and one of them is this. In great communities, people move towards, not away from tension. It needs to get resolved. Not to be confrontational just for the sake of being confrontational, but because those are the broken places that we have to go to if we want to grow, if we want true community. That's where Jesus always seems to be leading us, is right there to true community. I'll tell you a great New Testament tunnel of chaos type of a word. In Romans chapter 15, Paul says, I myself am convinced that you are competent to admonish one another. Admonish. It's not a word we use a lot. In great communities, people admonish, they caution each other. It's kind of a partner to encouraging each other. But a lot of times, we're a whole lot more comfortable with encouraging, aren't we? Because that's nice. People like to be encouraged. It's polite. Everybody likes it. It's not chaotic to encourage. People in faith community will do only that. But Paul tells us to admonish one another with the Spirit of God. See, here's the danger for those of us in the church. For example, the Bible says quite a bit about being generous, right? We can come to church, hear sermons, do Bible studies, learn all these cool Greek and Hebrew words, know a ton of Bible passages about generosity, be able to tell everyone why being generous is something all Christians should be, and be absolutely convinced that we have accomplished something. We think we've somehow grown spiritually. Here's the problem with that. Jesus tells us in Luke chapter 6 to give freely, to be generous. What does Jesus expect his disciples to do? To actually be generous, right? Be generous. Don't talk about it, do it. If we're not actually being generous, we haven't achieved anything except simply gaining some knowledge about being generous and patting ourselves on the back. When I was serving at the New Holland Church of the Nazarene in Pennsylvania, the pastoral staff would often attend a church leadership conference at the Willow Creek Church in Barrington, Illinois. These conferences would have hundreds, sometimes thousands of pastors and church leaders that would attend. We'd sit in large groups, we'd sit in small group sessions all day, and in between those times, as pastors do, we break for lunch, we break for dinner, and we go eat at some local restaurant. Well, Willow Creek got curious about this and decided to kind of get a little feedback from nearby restaurants about these pastors and these church leaders that would descend on them en masse. Turns out that these pastors and church leaders were not particularly generous when it came to tipping at restaurants. Can you imagine that? In fact, they got feedback that these church leaders and pastors were actually stingier, less generous than just typical non-pastor type folks. Uh-oh. So the leaders of the conference actually had to admonish the conference attendees, got up front, Bill Hybels, and said, now look, guys, you got to go out. You got to tip, folks. This is not in theory. I need you to actually go and do this. Be generous. You know, as a veteran of working many, many years in restaurant work in the Columbus, Ohio area, there was the collective thought of all of us who worked at sit-down style restaurants on Sundays of, here comes the Christians. We knew we were about to get bombarded with demanding and cheap people. Now, I don't know if it's true or not for the New Philly area, but I know Jesus said, go out into all the world, and guess what? The world starts right there at Fair Avenue. So from now on, everybody, whether you go to J&G, Buffalo Wild Wings, Sumo's, Gavin's, Applebee's, Red Lobster, Bob Evans, whatever, stick your restaurant in there. Here's what I want you to do. Tip double. Tip double what you've been tipping, okay? For some of you, if it's 0, let's go a little higher than that. You need to double that a little higher. Are you excited about that? Can we do that? If you haven't been tipping, may God have mercy on your soul. Please tip. Your waiters and waitresses, they work hard. The goal we have is not to learn about generosity. It's to actually be generous. Our goal is not to learn about forgiving, folks. It's actually to forgive. Our goal is not to learn about joy. It's to actually rejoice and to be joyful people, not looking like you've been sucking on a lemon all day. Our goal is not to learn about prayer. It's that we actually pray. And by the way, Monday night prayer, Dean, I'm putting it out there. Monday night prayer, come. We would love to have you. 6 o'clock, y'all come. The only way people learn to actually do the stuff Jesus talked about is the way they learned to do it in Jesus' day, is just to do it the way Jesus did. Follow his example. It was getting into little communities of followers of Jesus who are doing life together, who are watching each other, who are cheering each other on, who are admonishing each other, who are actually holding each other accountable and learning how to live in the Spirit together. Not siloed, away from each other, together. One more. There's the risk of initiating community, the risk of challenging people, and then there's a super risky step of being vulnerable in community. Being vulnerable in community. You know, I think one of the most amazing aspects of Jesus' ministry was his transparency. Think about it. Jesus' disciples saw him not just when things were going well, they saw him tired. They saw him hungry. They saw him angry. They saw him rejected. At some point when he really raised the bar and he was really challenging the crowds, we're told that a lot of people left him. In John chapter 6, Jesus turned to his disciples and asked, "Are you going to leave me too?" Such a heartbreaking, vulnerable question. Can you hear the emotion in that? Are you going to leave me too? And Peter says, "No, where else would we go? We're staying with you, Jesus." At the moment of one of the greatest crises of his life, we're told Jesus began to be sorrowful. He began to be troubled. And instead of hiding that, instead of handling it all on his own, instead of pretending, "I'm just fine, it's fine," Jesus actually said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." It makes me ask myself, if Jesus can be that vulnerable, who am I to hide? Who are we to hide if Jesus can be that vulnerable? Have you ever noticed that we live in a culture where image management is like an art? It's an art form. We care so much about how other people view us, how other people see and think about us. We care way too much about that, folks. Man, I am preaching to myself. We don't want to be like that. We don't want to pretend. But we so often think that pretending is going to somehow make people think more highly of us. But instead, it just isolates us like one of those little charcoals that set off to the side. When we come together and we're open and honest in our weakness, in our failure, in our humanness, it binds us together. And we're so hungry for that, whether we realize it or not. We are so hungry for a community like that, that we don't have to hide, that we can be vulnerable. There was once a time when a man named Jesus built a little community like that. And then he sent his Spirit and absolutely exploded across the earth. And it can happen again, folks, right here. Do you believe that? It can happen right here. So that's how we're actually going to close today. You knew I was coming to that. You probably have noticed, usually we close with a prayer, we close with a song or something like that. I'm sure you probably noticed that. Well, instead of that, today we're gonna sing one song, just one, and it's one I guarantee you all know, but we're also gonna take some time for a little bit of authentic community. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Even if you're an introvert, though, I'm going to ask you, would you give it a try? Just spend a few moments connecting with a few people right around where you sit. I'm not asking you to go all over the church looking for people, just right around where you sit. Here's something I've noticed about church. People come to church and they often find themselves sitting in the exact same place. Is that you? You go look for, and if somebody's sitting in your spot, now you got a decision to make. Okay, so that area you sit, it's like your neighborhood. It's like your hood, right? That's where you hang out. It's where you get to know your neighbors, all of that kind of stuff. It's kind of like Mr. Rogers' time, okay? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. What a sad and tragic thing if people come to church and they never get to know anyone. Amen? I got no pressure with this, but part of why we doing this whole name tag thing, right, it's good to be known. It's good to be known, and you never know when you're one conversation away from a friendship that might actually change your life. Take a risk and reach out. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few questions you can ask. Super easy. If it helps you to have a question or two to ask people. One of them is, how is it you look so young for your age? That's a great question. People love that question. We could ask a couple people that, or if you want to go a little bit deeper, what brought you to MP-NAZ? Tell your story, essentially. How'd you get here? If you want to go a little deeper than that, is there something I can pray for you about? Man, I think we all got something we can pray about. We're going to sing the one song, and then I invite you to meet 2 or 3 people you haven't met or don't know very well and ask them one of those questions. You can pray for someone, and then once you're done with that, we're done, and we'll be going home. Everybody understand how we're closing? Okay, so it's a little bit different. Right now, folks, I believe that in the midst of this, the Spirit's going to be at work. And you never know what's going to happen when we invite the Holy Spirit to work, right? No pressure. If you want to leave, you can. But I'm looking and I'm watching. I'm taking names. And if you don't like people, if you're really introverted, don't feel trapped. But if you want to stay, I believe it will be a special time for you if you take a few minutes to get to know some people. Folks, the Holy Spirit's at work through this. People getting prayed for, blessed, connecting with each other, building neighborhoods all around the room. This is what we're trying to create. This is our community. So let's just take a few moments. Let's sing a little, build up your neighborhood, get to know a few people right around you, bless some folks, and then God bless you. We'll see you again next week. But first, I'd invite you to stand real quick. We're going to sing, and then get to know a few people right around. And like I said, I guarantee you, you're going to know this song.
I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by His blood, joined hands with Jesus as we travel this sod. For I'm part of the family of God. Let's sing it again. I'm so glad I'm a part of the family of God. I've been washed in the fountain, cleansed by His blood, joined heirs with Jesus as we travel this sod. For I'm part of the family of God.
So greet each other, and then we'll be done. God bless you.